Before I start sewing, let's talk about fit and how to get this pattern to fit your doll. When you print it out, it has to be exactly 1 inch, the scale. When you cut it out, do not add a seam allowance. Just cut it on the line. You can start out by cutting it just right on the edge of the line. You can see I used the black. And if you're not satisfied with the fit of the shoe, you can cut right inside. Always make a practice shoe before you cut into your good fabric. I want to make sure I showed you something that is big time important. When you print the pattern, you're printing a PDF, make sure that you check on the scale. And the scale should be on the default setting, not on fit to page. So check that out, because that'll make a slight difference in the size of the shoe printout. I wanted to remind you that I do have another video on how to make a doll shoe. It's probably about the 10th video that I made. You might want to go back and look at that one. Also, I use an American Girl doll as my models. I don't know about you, but I can see just a slight difference in these two dolls. I don't know. I think a lot of people have these knockoff dolls that you find at Walmart and Target and some of the other stores. This is Our Generation. And if you compare the two dolls, this is the Our Generation, you can see that her foot is just a bit smaller than the American Girl doll. That would make a difference in the pattern. So for her, you'd have to take a little bit off the toe. I have a Tolly Tot doll, Tolly Tots. Their feet are very similar. You might recognize this doll. I think it was a Madame Alexander. She had half soft body and this part hard body. Her foot looks just a tiny bit larger. I think this doll came from, I want to say, Joann's, and her foot is noticeably larger. So if your pattern does not fit, you will have to, because of some of the sizes of the dolls, you will have to adjust your pattern slightly. If you've made your practice pattern and you're sure it fits, it's time to draw the sole of the shoe, and I've got several suggestions in my pattern of what to use as the sole. And I just use, as the inner sole, I just use playing cards. And this is the side that will show. You fold your fabric and draw. Do not add seam allowance, just draw as is if you've printed to scale. Sometimes I'll add a different lining, like one of my polka dot fabrics. Remember, do not cut until you have sewn the curve and the extended part of the pattern on one side. I put a little notch so I would remember which side to sew. If you want a higher cut shoe, sew on the line, the penciled line. But if you want a lower cut shoe, sew about 1/4 of an inch from the line. You can experiment when you're doing your practice shoe. You will want the higher cut when you make the boot. Clip your curves so that they will flatten out and release tension. Now you're ready to turn it to the right side. Make sure that corner is nice and sharp. Okay, I've turned it and I took it to the ironing board and gave it a really good press. And then I zigzagged around the outer side so that it would glue easily. And I put, I'm not sure you can see it, but I put a kind of a fancy little stitch that will be on the inside. I also gave it a top stitch because I am going to either glue it or hand stitch it, and I like for that to be straight. You're going to find the middle and glue it because you want that to be what you see. Sometimes I use this tacky glue and sometimes I use a glue gun. Just depends on if I'm in a hurry or whatever, to glue the fabric to the inner sole. But you have a little bit more control with the tacky glue because that glue gun is fast. So, make your practice shoe and decide if you want this much of an overlap, because that's what it does on my doll. And you can either cut your pattern to make it more centered, but just measure how much you want to cut. But I think what I'm going to do to solve this overlap problem is just sew another top stitch on this side, and that'll make it pretty centered on the back of the heel, plus it'd just add a little bit more dimension to the shoe. You decide what you want to do, and it may fit your doll exactly, so experiment with it. So here's that top stitch I was talking about. And the whole point of this video is to give you some troubleshooting ideas, because I had one lady say her shoe was too small, and another lady say her shoe was too big. So it depends on your doll. It depends on how you cut the pattern out. But anyway, I just added this second top stitch and I like that. I haven't done that on any of my shoes before. I usually just cut my pattern to fit my American Girl doll. So, this side needs to be either glued. You could glue it, that'd be the easy way. Or you could take a few hand stitches, and I try to hide my stitches. So I'll show you what I do. Take a teeny tiny little stitch on the outside. I'm having a hard time doing it on camera. Okay, there's my teeny tiny little stitch. It barely shows. And then I'll take another little stitch underneath. And again, go up in those, the top stitch, sorry about that. There we go. And teeny tiny one again. This is what I've learned about my doll to get a perfect fit shoe. I did hot glue the bottom and I cut some of the bulk off, and I hot glued the back, but you see I'm not very skilled. It oozed out, but I did trim some of it off. So that's why I would rather hand sew the back. Now for my doll, I cut off all the black. I'm talking about that part. But I do leave it on the sole of the shoe. You do need most of the length. I wouldn't cut off any of the length. But The width, if you don't like this wide area, you can just cut some of that off right there, but if you get it too narrow, it's really hard to get on the doll's foot. So that's why I give it kind of plenty of room. Now you're going to want to glue your outer sole onto your shoe, and I've given you several suggestions within the pattern, but I would definitely glue that with the glue gun. That makes it more durable as your child plays with it. You will also want to put a trim around the shoe to hide some of these gaps and some of this hot glue that oozes out. In my last shoe video, I've got an older one, I have taken the placemats from Dollar Tree and used that as the trim. It even looks good to use this side also. But I'd rather use these foam sheets that I found at Walmart, and that just is more pliable as you put it around the shoe. Here's the finished shoe, and I used some of this Dollar Tree ribbon and just folded it and wrapped thread around it to get the bow and sewed a little bead on it. Okay, you're going to make the boot. The bottom of the boot is the same as the little shoe that you just made, and I did not line it. You just have to remember to put this stay stitch or top stitch on the curve and then clip it as close as you can. And then on the flat part, the top of the boot, do the same. Put your stay stitch and then clip it. And this will help it make its curve around the inside of the shoe. And you're putting right sides together. Pin it. And you see how it flattens out as you sew. And you're going to try and stitch right under this stitch that you already have. After you've made your practice shoe and you are positive about the fit, this is when you can put your hook and loop tape on it. You're going to put the rough side on the inside and the smooth side on the outside, or the right side of the fabric, so that when you Velcro it, that's what you have. You have a nice finish. And then go ahead and sew the bottom part of the shoe. Sew that. Here's mine. And while it's still flat, probably should do this before you do the Velcro. While it's flat, turn it down and finish the edge so that you'll have a finished top of the boot. And that's it. That's about as easy as I can get. Now, I've seen better looking boots, but if you want easy, this is the way to go.